You're listening to Los Angeles Music Festival. Esteban Vasquez here. It is Friday, March 11th, 2022, a special day. Release day for the Mark Waid Trio. The new record is called True Stories, and as of today, it's everywhere for streaming and purchase. And get this, we are joined by the man himself, modern jazz composer and bassist, Mark Waid. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, great to be here. Really happy to be on with you.
Well, thank you. We're going to talk with Mark about this new record, about being a musician in 2022, and anything else that comes up. But let's start with music. The new record is called True Stories. It is out today. The first song is called I Feel More Like I Do Now. It was inspired by the first album Mark ever bought. So listen for a spirit and maybe a familiar melody.
Absolutely.
I Feel More Like I Do Now, track one on True Stories, the new record by the Mark Wade Trio. Mark is joining us by Zoom. Thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Well, if you just joined us, I mentioned going into that last song that it was inspired by someone. And in fact, all of the songs on True Stories were inspired by composers who influenced Mark, including Charles Mingus, Igor Stravinsky, Wayne Shorter, and yeah, Miles Davis. Mark, talk about Miles and your song, I Feel More Like I Do Now.
Well, for this album, what I wanted to do is to pay kind of an homage to some of these songs and composers that have meant a lot to me. I thought rather than just do a straight up rendition of other people's songs and to do a cover or maybe rearrange it a little, I really wanted to take on the challenge as a composer to write new music, kind of using bits and pieces of original material from other people to create something new for myself. And so this track, I Feel More Like I Do Now, is inspired from the first Miles record, first jazz album I ever bought, which was Miles Smiles. And there was a track on there called Freedom Jazz Dance, which Miles, of course, didn't write, but was a track that I always really liked from that album. So I Feel More Like I Do Now is kind of just a distillation of a certain vibe, a little bit of a hint at the original motive from that tune, but the goal is really to try to capture the spirit and the essence as opposed to a just a rote rendition of the original.
Nice. Now, True Stories is your fourth album. First was 2015's Event Horizon, then 2018's Moving Day, which struck me as a record of a lifetime and made me a super fan. Then 2020's Songs from Isolation, a brilliant concept record and videos arising from the pandemic, and now True Stories out today. And you talked about this a little bit, but talk more about the concept for True Stories and how did that come together for you with the players and everything?
Well, from the players, that's easy. This is the same band that I've recorded with here since 2015 from the Event Horizon record. And one of the things that I love most about this record is that it's the culmination of all that time with the same players: Tim Harrison on piano, Scott Newman on drums. That's what makes up the Mark Wade Trio, and it's always the same personnel. And I'm a firm believer of really trying to have a band sound like a band, as opposed to just calling in people to do a session. Some you can call in great players and they can make a nice record, but there's something to be said for a band that plays together and kind of grows together musically over the years. So this record to me is very much a culmination of that time for us collectively as a group. It really, to me, is what really makes the music happen. And the as far as the record and how I got the idea for it, I can't remember which tune I wrote for this album first, but the album, I started writing the music for this album all the way back around the time that the 2018 album Moving Day came out. So some of this music's been sitting out there for quite a while. And I think whichever song it was, it may have been Falling Dolores, the second track on the record. It may have been the last track on the record. At the Sunside, but I remember I had taken this fragment of a song and wrote something, and it was a different experience for me as a composer, and I thought, gee, maybe I should keep working on that idea, and then here we are 8 tunes later.
Very cool. Well, let's play another song, and we'll play Falling Dolores. The writing credit on this is shared by another greatest of all time jazz artist. Tell us about that.
So this second album, the title is a little bit of a giveaway, and that is Falling Dolores takes 2 tunes by Wayne Shorter that he wrote during his stint in Miles Davis's quintet, the famous quintet from the 60s, of course. And those 2 tunes are Fall and Dolores. So I took themes from both, but most of this is actually an original tune that I wrote, the waltz part that you'll hear that's in 3, that was meant to sound like something that Wayne might write. But combine it with these other 2 ideas that he actually did write, and trying to weave all these things together, that was really the bent of the tune. So I hope you enjoy. Great.
Beautiful. That was Falling Dolores, the Mark Wade Trio from their new record, True Stories, available now for streaming and purchase. Now, we're going to play another song shortly, but Mark, I'd like to ask you about the secret of your success. And let me explain. Of course, you're a brilliant and hardworking artist, but we're hopefully coming out of what has been a devastating period. I mean, the pandemic, the lack of performance opportunities, the crazy political divisiveness, and fucking streaming. We have a new generation of music fans who think $10 a month sent to Spotify or whoever will somehow translate into a recording budget and a living for all of their favorite bands. But you, Mark, composer and band leader, just released your fourth album. You're also the founder and director of New Music Horizons, dedicated to the support of new music in the fields of contemporary jazz and classical music in the New York City area. We could do a whole show about that, but listeners, you can find more information at newmusichorizons.org. You're artistic director for Art in the Park and the Annapolis Jazz and Roots Festival in Maryland. You're a member of the jazz faculty at Lehigh University. You're a husband. What are some of the techniques, methods, or things you do that assist with your productivity?
Well, I think, especially when you list all those things together, boy, it does sound like a lot, I guess. Really time management is the key for me. Being disciplined. You have to be look, this sounds very unmusical in many ways to say, people might want to hear the secret is some magic thing that you know how to play a C minor 7 chord a certain way or this fancy thing. And really the reality is it's the same in any other thing that you ever do. And that is you got to be disciplined. You have to be committed 110%. You have to be able to take no for an answer and keep going. And you have to be willing to do that day after day after day. My first album that came out in 2015, I had already been um, working as a professional freelancer for many years, 20 years at that point. And that's late for a lot of people to then release their first album. I was in my late 30s. And usually by then, most people have either given up or they've moved on or they've done another thing. But, kind of to what the point we're talking about, I always wanted to wait until I felt I really had something to say, something to contribute that I thought was meaningful to jazz, right? And I didn't want to just make quote unquote just another record, go in and record some standards or sort of write a few tunes and hire a few people to play it. And so I waited a long time, and I think that kind of belief, in myself and willing to kind of wait until I really felt I was ready, all of that, I think that attitude is really what has helped kind of push me forward.
Excellent. Well, thank you. As promised, another song. This is In the Market, the Mark Wade Trio from the new record, True Stories. This is Los Angeles Music Festival on the Vision Broadcasting Network. I'm your host, Esteban Vasquez, and we're talking with Mark Wade of the Mark Wade Trio. Today is release day for Mark's fourth album, True Stories. We just heard In the Market. Tell us about that one, Mark.
So another record that was kind of early on in my discography here for jazz was Weather Report's groundbreaking record, Black Market, and this was really the first record that kind of created the idea of world music, I think, in a lot of people's minds at the time. And it was also a very interesting record for this, super group, this jazz fusion super group, at a time when the very famous Jaco Pastorius came onto the band. So a really interesting record that it kind of shows the band's past and future at the same time. And it's always been one of my favorites. Other people, there's a lot of great Weather Report records out there, but this one was always my favorite, first one I heard. So I thought, well, what can I do? What could I do with this? What could I do to make this part of this idea of an homage to some of my favorites? So what I've done here is not so much record a lot of original material, but stretched a number of different themes, not just from one or two tunes on the record, but from several, and put those together to create kind of a new idea. So fans of that record will clearly recognize the material from the opening track, Black Market, and from the last track on the record, Hernando. But there's a number of other ideas that are sprinkled throughout the record. So I really meant to try to get almost like a very quick overview of the record and all the really wonderful themes that they explore in there.
Well, that is very cool. Now, is there anything else that you will want to talk about?
Well, it's just I guess I just want to say a thank you to everybody who's out there who's listening. There's been a tremendous response for the record already. There's already been a number of reviews and some other good stuff that I can't quite announce just yet, but that I do know that is coming, that I'm excited about. And talking about all the records that I've done and some of the stuff I've done, it's always amazing to hear this stuff, because in my mind, I'm just working on what I'm working on today. But when you look back, there has been some success there, and I'm really grateful for it. Just really always grateful when these moments come out, just to say thank you for all the people who have been voting for me in polls and buying the records and booking the band. It's moments like these that I really do want to just say thank you.
Wonderful. Well, I have another question for you, kind of on the topic of being a musician. I'd like to know what you tell your students about a career in music. And for a little more context, I mean, I've been doing things along the edges of the music business my whole life.
Mhm.
And my son is a freshman at the UNT College of Music,
Mm,
majoring in cello performance.
sure.
And while I know there are professional musicians out there who are thriving creatively, and hopefully a lot of them making a reasonable living, but I suspect there are quite a few talented and hardworking musicians in the field and or graduating in the next few years who may have some concerns about the viability of a career in music. Do your students ask you about that? And if so, what do you say?
So whenever anyone asks about I want to do this, or should I do this, or what is it like? Just even what is it like to be in the music business? And I always say, I don't play music because I want to. I play music because I have to. Because there is nothing else that I could do that could possibly make me happy in this life. That's it. Like, I found the thing and I have to do it. I am compelled to do it. And only if you feel that you have to do this, not that you really want to do it, not because you really like music, because there is literally nothing else you could possibly think of doing. If you feel that way, then I say you got to go for it. Right? Then you owe it to yourself to make a run at it. And if you make it, you make it. And if you don't, you don't. There's no shame in that. I've known plenty of very fine musicians who no longer do this for a living. I don't think any less of them. The business is tough, right? And so there's certain realities you have to deal with. But if there is anything else that you think you could go do and be happy, I say you should go do it, because you'll never put up with all the stuff that you need to do in order to make it, and as a pro. And even just the business side, to the side for a minute, because we all know that a career in the performing arts is financially not always a super lucrative thing. Just what you have to do to play music at a high level is just such a commitment. People who haven't gone through that process, just they really don't know. It's like training for the Olympics your whole life. I mean, you're just constantly practicing, constantly refining. and having you just really have to be really dedicated. If you have that, if you think you have that, I always say go for it. And if you think that that sounds like a bridge too far, there's no shame in doing something else. That's cool too.
Well, Mark, what a joy it is talking with you and listening to this music. Um, why don't we give a shout out to some of our friends on Twitter? Jazzgator, I'll start, and your friend Sammy Stein and the UK contingent of your fans. Are there others you want to mention by name?
Oh, those are okay. There's a lot of people out there. Geez, all around the world, there have been people chiming in. Zamandlela Zama down in South Africa, who's been pushing my music down there strong. I do appreciate that. Um, Certainly a shout out to Jazz Beyond Borders and Paula Phillips, who have been a big part of this campaign as well. Groove Marketing, who's going to be doing the radio here in the States, and AMP Music in Music and Records in Norway, the label that is going to be that's handling the distribution, which is dropped today as well in Europe and the UK. So it's really been a team effort. Been great to work with everybody. So.
Well, great. Now we're going to say goodbye with one more song. I do want to recommend to everyone that you visit markwademusicny.com, New York, to learn more about Mark Wade. Readers of Downbeat magazine have named him among the top bassists in the world for 5 of the last 6 years. And if you're familiar with Downbeat magazine, that kind of says everything you need to know. But check him out. Stream the record on your platform of choice. And if you're inclined, buy the record. And on the way out, we're going to listen to At the Sunside. Please set it up for us, Mark.
So this last tune on the record, it may have been the first one I wrote. I can't quite remember, but it was an early one. So this one is taken from the first 5 notes you hear of this song are taken actually from another song written by a really wonderful band from Sweden by the name of Corpo, and it's led by a really great saxophone player by the name of Mikael Godet. And I had the honor of sharing a short tour in Europe a number of years back with Corpo and then my band opposite him on a few concerts. And one of those concerts was at the Sunside Sunset Club in Paris. And I heard the song, and with his permission, I said, "Do you mind if I borrow those 5 notes? I'm gonna." And I wrote a whole other song, very different song, around those 5 notes, and I sent it to him, and he gave me the okay. And so this is At the Sunside.
Thank you for joining us, Mark. It is a joy to talk to you, and I look forward to listening to this music and playing it for years to come.
Oh, thanks so much. Great to be on with you.